We are live. This is Lindsey Huddleston with Sports Psychology Solutions coming at you again with another SPS Edge podcast with the co-hosts with the mostest. That's a little old school talk right there, Terry. You got Terry McCord Jr. right here, the young Padawan getting ready to be a Jedi. He's on his way. Terry, we got a great lineup as usual. Thanks to you and your production skills and putting things together. We're going to talk about the AFC and NFC championship game recaps. That's going to be something to talk about. We got a Super Bowl coming up in a couple weeks. The Lakers versus 76ers and how that went down. MSU versus Ohio State. That's actually going to tip off at the very tail end of our podcast. We'll be able to jump in and catch that. You know, of course, SPS will be bringing you post-game interviews. High school basketball versus COVID. Oh, man, that's going to be enough to talk about. And that's going to lead right into our basketball insider, John, who will be joining us for the Big Ten picks. We better see how you guys did. Your first week, Terry, you killed them. That second week, it kind of balanced out. So we'll see what happens with that. So with no further ado, Terry, why don't you take us through, man? Everyone got a chance to catch those championship games. I made sure that the SPS Edge Coaches Forum dealing with the Detroit coaches was over by 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time so we could catch those championship games. So give us your thoughts and recap on everything.
Yeah, so, I mean, with that one, there's one game in particular where I would like to kind of dive in the most time at. I mean, the other one, the Bills at the Chiefs, I mean, just overall dominance, just Patrick Mahomes and his guys, it looked like backyard football, just shovel passes and finding ways to get speed guys on the perimeter, and they just were too much for Buffalo. But the game that I really want to go in depth about is that Bucks at the Packers game. That game, to me, a lot of people put the blame on the coach, which I think is true. And a lot of the blame should be on Rodgers as well. I think it's not one way of blame. I think that there were some calls down the stretch that I think were it isn't something that I would particularly want to do if I was the coach. They had numerous opportunities. I mean, they got 3 interceptions straight, and 2 out of the 3 interceptions were 3 and outs. So, I mean, you have to do something with the ball.
Right.
At the end, I feel like Rodgers should have ran to make the 4th and goal manageable instead of having the 4th and goal play. If they
I got a question about that play. I got a question to you. I looked at that, and the first thing I said, like, man, he could have ran, but maybe he didn't have the confidence in his athletic ability to get there.
Right. Yeah, and then that's where I was like, not only would he – I don't think
Lamar Jackson.
Oh, he would have took off. He would have took off and probably made somebody miss his score. But I think with Rodgers, though, I don't think he's really – they're putting a lot of the blame on the 4th down call, the 4th and goal.
Right.
And I want to focus on the play before. Like, there were things that led up to it. They tried to go to Devontae Smith 3 times, and it didn't work. But I feel like the 3rd time, I don't think he was very open. I feel like he could have scrambled, got 3 or 4 yards, and made the play a little bit easier. But, I mean, these are the games where, like, everything matters, and Colin Cowherd said on Fox, that Aaron Rodgers got Brady'd. I mean,
oh, wow.
Pat Mahomes has got Brady'd. Rodgers has gotten Brady'd now. Numerous quarterbacks can say that they got Brady. Peyton Manning got Brady'd. I mean, when I say Brady'd, it's like he perfectly described this. It's like everything counts. You never know where you're going to get the ball back. Every play call that you may not have wanted to call, everything adds up. And it's tough. Like the one like before, do you kick the field goal thinking that you get the ball back? No. Like, I mean, you're not getting the ball back, so you should have gone for it. That's a mistake. The 3 and outs that I mentioned after the interceptions, that's a mistake. It's just all of those add up when you're playing a guy like Brady because he's going to make you pay for it. He's not going to give you the ball back.
Yeah. Can I add something on that? I like that term you used, and maybe that was Colin Cowherd's term, being Brady. I think there's something to be said about that because as a player, you're taught to believe that you're good or even great, and you can believe that you're great. But there's a whole different level of mental impact on the game, especially the mental impact on the game of your opponents when your opponents think you're great. And I use the example that we probably talked about offline before with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, like after a game, hanging out maybe in Vegas or somewhere, and they ran into Steph Curry. And they all were joking. And Steph said, man, why did y'all do that play at the end? They were like, We weren't giving you the ball back. They were like, we were not letting you get the ball back. Now, that's greatness referring to that. So I think with Tom Brady, that impact that you're talking about is that he makes people make mistakes just by his presence. People are overthinking, taking other things into consideration. They probably wouldn't take into consideration if it was any other player. So that speaks to that GOAT aspect. And I'm really indifferent about Tom Brady. I know we probably have different political ideologies, but to be totally honest, man, when they showed that little ESPN piece on how the story about his jersey being stolen, I don't know if you saw that. Great piece. Great piece. And I could especially relate to that being a member of the media. But the guy who was stolen, I'm not trying to give it away, apologized for whatever it's worth. Mm-hmm. And, man, when I say that Tom Brady was very gracious in taking that man's apology, dude, that changed my whole – not that I had an issue with Tom Brady, but the way this guy whose life will never be the same because of what he did, this is basically the guy who ended up stealing the jersey and got caught.
Right.
He apologized on camera to Tom Brady, dude. Tom Brady was so gracious and was like, man, you know, like, I can't be mad at you. You know, so for me right there, Shannon Sharp talks about Tom Brady a lot, and I know we want to get back to the other game as well. And Shannon Sharp talks about basically saying, yeah, Brady come off that way, but he ain't really that cool in his politics. And I get that. But for those of us who may not have that interaction, all you can go off is your experience with somebody. That Brady effect is major, man. I mean, that he really has people saying this guy is going to an obscure team, Tampa Bay. Let's call it what it is. Nobody was checking for Tampa Bay since the Dungy era. Let's be honest. And when what's our guy, Coach? I'm looking at his. I'm not going to call him his nickname, which is. But when our coach in Las Vegas, who's the Las Vegas coach?
Gruden, John Gruden.
Excuse me, I didn't want to call him by his nickname just to get it out. He inherited a great Bucs team and won that.
Right.
So I make that point to say, going back to now, man, ain't nobody checking for that. So that Brady effect is major, and I appreciate you bringing that up, and that's something I have to talk about in the future.
Yeah, I think we saw that too. The game right after the Mahomes effect. I think he's starting to build some reputation about, you know, having his presence and affecting the other team's coaching style. I mean, the Bills kept kicking field goals, and that was one of the things I kept worrying about as a Browns fan the week before. Our guys kept kicking field goals, and I'm like, we gotta score touchdowns. You know, against the Chiefs, at the end of the day, 6 points will be 7 if you kick the extra point. 7 points is greater than 3. And so I think Sean McDermott, the head coach of the Bills, really felt that he made the correct calls to keep his team's spirits up and not make them feel like, oh, we're just driving down here and not scoring any points against the Chiefs.
Let me put some points on the board just to feel good.
Yeah, but I mean that evidently that didn't work for them, and the Chiefs just kept on scoring. You got to find a way to beat teams and play to win and not to lose.
You know, I will guess from this, and you really helped me with bringing this up. I guess we can call both Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady 7-footers. Now, what do I mean by that? If you had a 7-footer on the floor on the opposite team, Terry, in the zone, posted up in the middle like this, you go augment your shot. You're not trying to take it to him for the most part. You're trying to shoot around him or just to even thought of them. You see some shot blockers, man, they don't even have to block shots. It's just their presence. And what you've kind of pointed out in a great way is Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady have that impact. And I think it's something to be said, man. And I forget who told me this. I was talking to my boy Horatio Williams. Shout out to Horatio. I know Orlando knows Horatio really well. And we were talking, man, about college football. He said, man, you can't win without a great quarterback. If you don't have an outstanding quarterback, you know, to take you there and do what needs to be done, you're not going to win. That's collegiately and in the NFL as well. And I think that can't be overshadowed. So right now, you know, we got the battle of young and old. At the end of the day, man, I don't have no reason to hate on Brady. I'm a big fan of Patrick Mahomes, man, but if he get another one, man, I can't even be mad at him for getting another one.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you just appreciate greatness while it's in front of us. Same thing with like LeBron. If he goes and wins the 5th one, you know, and in his 18th year, you know, going up with these crazy numbers, competing the way that he's competing, he's shooting the 3-ball really well. I mean, you just got to sit back, relax, and watch greatness, appreciate it while it's still here.
Yeah, and especially with the sport of football, you know this very well. You know, just recently getting off the gridiron right now, and I know this from my time playing and just watching it. Football is such a dominant sport that you can't just come in as – rarely can an individual have such an impact on such a team-orientated sport. You got 11 guys on both sides going back and forth, and for one player to get traded in the offseason, to an obscure team that wasn't even playoff bound. It's not even like they had all these pieces and they whatever. They just put that together. He brought Gronk in. He brought his man in. He brought AB and Antonio Brown. We ain't heard a peep out of AB since then. I mean, at the end of the day, Tom Brady is not only the GOAT, but he's the AB whisperer for the most part. Because if they win this Super Bowl, you think about it, he went to the Raiders, he went to the Patriots,
right? And
now he ended up here, and basically all we know, they were like one game away from winning the Super Bowl, and Antonio Brown is just AP. It ain't no issue. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So there's something to be said. Do you have anything else to add about the AFC, NFC championships and the Super Bowl? What's your Super Bowl prediction, Terry?
Well, I think right now, I think I'm feeling more of the Patrick Mahomes, and I like what they're going to bring to the table. Their defense doesn't get enough credit, I believe. I think what Honey Badger's been able to allow his teammates to, kind of elevate their play and postseason play. A lot of people talk about their offense, but their defense, they get rowdy up there. Chris Jones and that D line, they get after the quarterback really well, as we've seen with Allen not really helping, letting him feel too comfortable up there. But I'm feeling the Chiefs right now. I think if Antonio Brown plays, I think it'll be interesting. Hopefully he's back to play, but I don't know. Brady's a tough guy to bet against, tough guy to pick against. I don't want Mahomes to get Brady'd again, but I'm really hoping that Patrick Mahomes pulls it out and wins back-to-back Super Bowls. I really hope he does.
Yeah, I think that's a great analysis. I would say the one thing that's probably going for the Chiefs that gives them an advantage, the best thing that they lost to the Buccaneers before. And I think teams that lose in the regular season, in my opinion, seem to always have an edge because they're locked in. The other team may feel a little overconfident that, we beat them before. And I always tell the story about when I played a team in the basketball league down in Detroit, and they popped us real good, Terry, in the regular season.
Oh, wait. They beat – I think the Buccaneers lost it. It was 27-24. That was the game that they almost lost. I know that they almost lost that one. And then Tyreek Hill had a crazy game. I don't know if he'll do that again, but something to keep a watch on. But they almost blew that game. It was on their stretcher where they barely beaten teams by, I think, at most 6 points. Like they were cutting it close.
Well, it's going to be something to look at. You make a good point. But with that prediction, man, and do you think it helps a lot that Tampa is playing at Tampa the first time a Super Bowl is, at the home of the host team,
I think it will be more of a mental thing being at home, but hopefully it's not a distraction. I think it's going to be like almost like a college town, and like East Lansing is all week.
Yeah.
When it's game time, you got the tailgates, everybody going crazy, you got the parties. Hopefully they're being safe with COVID, but I think it's going to be a great environment. I think it's going to be something that they're going to definitely take all in and have fun with it. I think they're going to bring that Tampa Bay Buccaneer pride out. And I think it's going to be a great game. Amidst all this COVID, craziness that's been going on, we're going to see two really good teams, clearly the two best teams from each conference battling out in the Super Bowl. So I think it's going to be a great game.
Well, one thing I want to warn people in advance, don't expect too much out of the Super Bowl commercials. It's across the board. My research has shown me that the companies are not investing in Super Bowl ads like they did. On average, 30-second Super Bowl spot was $5.5 million. And a lot of these companies like Pepsi and all these big corporations, they're still reeling from the pandemic. And they're looking at their bottom line like, man, we can't really afford that. So they said that a lot of that effort will go into doing PSAs for COVID, for testing. And getting vaccinations. So that's something to also look for. So, be prepared when people say, the commercials weren't that big and it wasn't all that. Man, it's just a different time. And when the corporations are saying we ain't got it, that's just letting you know how serious it is.
We might see Jake from State Farm, Patrick Mahomes, maybe a couple times. I thought if A-Rod and Pat make it to the Super Bowl, I definitely thought we were going to see maybe a couple commercials with those two, but not this year.
Well, they got something in the bag. They got to always have some contingency plan. We'll see. Well, great review on what's going to happen. We'll see what happens on February 7th, I want to say, when we sit down and watch the Super Bowl. That should be fun. Let's get to a little hoops, man. We saw the Lakers, unfortunately, lose their first road game last night. They were like 10-0 on the road. I really want to say that Cleveland kind of, Philly should thank Cleveland Coach Doc Rivers need to give the Cleveland coach Bickerstaff a call and say, hey, man, thanks for beating up on the Lakers like you did the other night, because when they came in here, it's what we needed. And when I look at that Philly team, Tobias Harris is such a beast. Tobias Harris got the ball, Terry, when he got the ball that last possession, I said it was going in. It was just everything about how he got it and how he responded and went down. But I think the Philadelphia being coached by Doc Rivers is significant. I think his coaching style helps him get those kind of wins. That was a Doc Rivers win compared to the team that was before. But I'd love to get your opinion on the Lakers versus 76ers matchup last night.
No, I really appreciate how the media and everyone's giving these Sixers a lot of credit. I mean, right now they're 10-0 with their starting five all healthy and playing. I think that's really key for them to build that rhythm. And although Seth Curry's been out, they're still able. He just came back last night, or might have came back the game before. But with him getting back into his rhythm, didn't have the best outing, but I think he's a key X factor for them, just shooting the ball on the outside and the perimeter. I think Joel Embiid is definitely in some MVP talks right now. I think he's been playing how we all like. He's been really dominant, and that's something that I really appreciate from him this year. Like just being that inside force. He was killing Marc Gasol. Every time I'm watching the whole game, I'm like, they're isolating him. And I think at some point the Lakers are like, all right, we gotta send another one. And that ultimately freed up guys like Harris and Simmons to get slashing in the middle and get some easy buckets themselves. I think he draws a lot of attention. One, because of his size, and then two, what he brings. He can shoot the ball. He can take you off the dribble. He can hit you put his back to the basket and hit you with a spin move. He brings a lot to the table, and I think another thing that's key for the Sixers team, like you mentioned, Tobias Harris. I've seen him in person when I went up to Little Caesars Arena a couple years ago to watch him play. Obviously, a different Tobias Harris. I think this one is definitely better than the one that I saw in person. Granted, they're going against the Pistons, which they weren't that good at the time. Then they are. They're playing a lot better now, but he's very efficient, and I think right now he's shooting 46% from three, and he's shooting 52% from the field. And I think that's very key for a guy like him. I would say that he's their second option. I think Simmons is definitely facilitating with him and Embiid. He takes a lot of he gets a lot of screens, off-ball screens, and I think his shots are very first off, his shot form is perfect. I love his shot form, and I feel like he gets a lot of shots where he feels comfortable. And he's just a shot maker. He hits shots. If you leave him open, I guarantee you it's going in.
Yeah, I know. And that's Tobias Harris, man. Looking at him, kind of reminds me of Allen Houston from back in the day as far as his size and his build. But I kind of slept on Tobias Harris going back to when he was with the Clippers. I knew the name, even with the Pistons. But now I just see him as someone who's worked on his game. And like I said, man, when it could be the last second and you can get that shot from the elbow, turn around and elevate over a player and just knock it down, that's huge. That means he's going to be probably the best go-to guy on the 76ers team, if you ask me. So that was something to see. And then, the Lakers, man, the Lakers going to be the Lakers, man. They're the team that has a target on their back. And I know we can sit here and say that they have to have a dog mentality night in, night out, but that's just not humanly possible. I even look at the last play that was a botched play. Which is definitely, an issue, I would say, of coaching. That last play, they couldn't even get anything off. Anthony Davis fell on the ground. It was like whatever. But at the end of the day, man, they playoff bound, man, and you got to beat those guys. Gilbert Arenas was on Club Shay Shay talking to Shannon Sharp about, what he sees the outcome of this season going to be. And he said he sees the Lakers, going back to back. And, this was before James Harden went to Brooklyn, but he made a good point. He said, man, LeBron beat, a Warriors team with KD, Steph, Clay, and Draymond, them four juggernauts. You know what I'm saying? And then now now he got help. So LeBron neutralizes two of those guys, and I think that's a good point, man. So I think despite how they're playing, despite everybody circling their calendar to play the Lakers, if they go withstand it, I mean, and to be what 10-1 on the road, I mean, come on, dude. Yeah. That's like them still like GOAT numbers right there. Well, speaking of NBA, we're going to move on down to college. A lot going on tonight. There's actually going to be a tip-off in approximately 30 minutes. Michigan State Spartans are out in Piscataway, New Jersey. I remember when I first went out there last season for football, I couldn't even say Piscataway, but now it just rolls off my tongue. Fortunately for the Spartans, they're not any fans there because the RAC is known as one of the toughest places to play at in the Big Ten. They have a history for that. Also, tough for the Spartans, man. Rutgers got that get back on their brain, man. The Spartans pretty much handed it to Rutgers, and Ron Harper Jr. did not play up to the hype at all. So now you add that with, Spartans having like a 2-3 week, 20-day layoff, 3-week layoff, it's going to be tough. But who knows? They can go in there with fresh legs, a fresh mindset, and get right to the money and get it done. And then, we have that. Then shortly after, we'll see them playing again on Sunday. They'll be at Ohio State. I know somebody on this podcast is a really big Ohio State fan. So the two of us, somebody is feeling that. So what do you think about tonight's matchup at Rutgers and Sunday's matchup at Ohio State for Michigan State?
I think this game for MSU is not only important because it's their first game back from numerous weeks due to COVID protocols. I think that's why it's important to knock some rust off against a pretty good team like Rutgers on the road. I think that's key for them to kind of get their legs moving again. But I think that Ohio State game, that can be, something that you circle, highlight, put a star next to it. Those are the games that you got to win to those are the games you got to win to build back up your tournament resume. I think I mentioned they were at like a 6 seed. I don't know, not 6 seed, 11 seed. I don't know how much that's changed with other teams winning and losing, but I think they're right around there, about a 10 or 11 seed. I think if they beat Ohio State, maybe getting some 8 and 9 seed kind of talking, because we're about to run into some tournament play pretty soon in about a month.
Oh yeah, we're halfway through, baby. We're getting ready.
Yeah, and you gotta beat those teams. Not only give your team confidence, but also it gives you guys a chance to play in postseason play. So I think it's gonna be a great game. Hopefully, Gabe Brown is healthy and he's back and for however long. I'm not really sure how long protocol.
He won't be back. His protocol pretty much just started. So
okay,
we're going to get into February. We're talking. I'm looking at the calendar.
Okay,
he'll probably be back. He'd be back around the Super Bowl, so whenever somebody's playing, then when he'll get back. So it'll be a little while before he's back.
Okay, so I think with him, it's more of a loss on the perimeter with his shooting for sure. And I think he runs the floor really well. And he gets a lot of steals. That's one of the things that I think is overlooked from him. A lot of people question his defensibility, but I think he gets a lot of deflections. His wingspan is crazy. I've seen him put his hands up on defense, and I'm like, wow, that guy, if he puts some heart into his defense, he can get a lot of steals. And we're starting to see that this year. So I think that's going to be a big loss, but hopefully they're able to overcome it tonight and give Ohio State a run for their money.
That's good. Speaking of Gabe Brown, man, I think he is going to be a monster his senior year. He's going to be a monster because he's been on that development trajectory. He's working on his game. And when you see glimpses of him, like showing out, whether it's shooting well, being super athletic, like, dude, I can imagine next season, all things being equal, he just being the breakout player on Michigan State, like a come-watch player. And I think that's going to catapult him to go to the next level possibly. He has the size, he has the work ethic, and he has that pedigree. But kind of going back to the point you said about MSU getting their tournament resume together, I think in this particular case, even with them having a dismal record right now, they'll probably just get in at probably maybe even the historically lowest seed they've ever been in, possibly. But I still think that won't mean anything because they'll work to get their way back. I think when that tournament committee sits down and the name Michigan State comes up, everybody's going to look and nod their head and say, look, man, it's a COVID year. Tom Izzo and the Spartans need to be in the tournament. That's good business. They might mess around and win it. You never know. But tonight is important, man. I mean, Tom Izzo talked about at the offset of the season, whoever handles these issues the best will be okay. And I'm really curious to first see them play and then ask Tom tonight after the game, what was the mindset going into and what they got out of it. So it should be something good to see. Looking at the time, man, we're close to halfway through, which means that we got a few more topics. And then we're going to also have the basketball insider join us soon. Our guy, John, he's going to have something to say. He's coming for you, Terry. I know he's coming for you. You probably have nightmares about you, Terry, and he's coming for you, but that's cool, though. But, Terry, I want to talk about something that's near and dear to me, something near and dear to you. It's what's going on with high school sports, particularly high school basketball and COVID. As you know, SPS, we put on a virtual town hall. We had coaches from Detroit area. Shout out to Orlando. Shout out to Lakita Gantz. Shout out to my guy Ramon Hatcher, Ray Hatcher. And Uncle Chuck was a crowd favorite. Chuck Bailey played at UDM His son, CB3, is playing out in the state of Arizona right now. And we just got to the business. And also last night I had some great coaches on board from Coach Milton Barnes at Jackson, Coach Casey Keaton, Coach Emeritus over at Everett, your guy, Coach Trey Adams at Everett, as well. We had a great group of guys, Coach Neller from Waverly, Coach Watts. We had Coach Dickerson coming away from Flint, not Flint, but he was coming from Dow, Midland, Midland Dow High School. Shout out to Coach Kevin Marshall from Bridgeport, helped bringing those guys together, and also Coach Dale Beard. All these guys came together and shared a whole lot, man. Coach Brian Dutton as well, representing Gold Lake, and Jarrell Amos representing Portage Northern. I shout out all those guys, man, because between Sunday's conversation and yesterday's dialogue, we came to the conclusion, man, like we need to really do an April start, June finish. These coaches are really going to have to work hard to make people stay complicit with and compliant, I should say, with what's going on. And I want to talk about what happened today, man. I went to the Capitol. There was a committee hearing, pretty much the Let Them Play hearing, and I was really disappointed, Terry. I was disappointed in the fact that when I put my old hat on, being a lobbyist, working in Governor Grano's administration, working for Walmart, so seeing the Democrat and the Republican attitude towards things, I was very disappointed because I think that this event that was put on to be a hearing on Let Them Play was as politically motivated as, I don't even know, man, and I say this based on one thing. There were 6 Republicans on the committee and 3 Democrats. That's okay because the Republicans had a majority. They're going to always have a majority. But of the 6 the Republicans, Terry, only one was wearing a mask. The chair of the actual committee walked in barefaced. And nowadays, bareface is almost like, somebody's breast popping out. It's like, oh my God, did you see that? Like bareface is like somebody's pants sagging, their butt show. You're like, oh my God. Out here with their face out here, and I had to take a double take. This is the chair of the committee. There was another on the committee. She walked in barefaced, meaning they're walking around the Capitol complex with no mask. Now, here's the thing. They sit up here and they're listening to all these children, particularly from white communities. There was no diversity. I was the only African-American in the audience, period, out of a room of maybe 100 people. And the only other African-American was a state rep, and the only other African-American was the head of the security detail. So anyway, with that being said, they were using every piece of information to throw things back at Governor Whitmer, and that was the disappointing part. They were making it about, oh, look what she's doing wrong, as opposed to saying, what can we do to move forward? So here's what I'm saying. I'm telling these coaches out here that you have to keep your community in order, because just as those elected officials sat up there in that meeting talking about the importance of following protocol and safety for the sake of our kids being able to get back to sports, although they were not wearing masks in public. Such a contradiction. So hypocritical. So I'm saying, when and if high school sports starts back for the winter, particularly basketball, if those coaches don't hold it down, meaning if those coaches don't say, follow the protocols, do what you got to do, and challenge those parents, and like I said, same group of parents that hasn't been addressed as it related to parents behaving badly, if that's not done, man, high school sports will go up and down like a flagpole. It'll go up, and Governor Whitmer will shut it right back down. It'll be no one's fault at this point but our own. And to Tom Izzo's point that he said when I asked him about high school sports in Michigan 2 days ago, he said, man, we could have been playing a long time ago. He said we could have been going out to eat. Just the fact is, nobody want to follow the protocols. He's absolutely right. So it was disheartening. I have to remind myself, and I don't want to say this often publicly, that I'm here to report, not try to solve, but I will report on things from my perspective and hope that can help people make the right decisions. But, man, it was just disheartening because it seemed like it was so politically motivated. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I obviously I wasn't there, but I can kind of see what you mean by that. I mean, I brought it up about a month ago, talking about how if this is something that's very important to people, people would want to people would definitely take it a lot more serious. If it's something like if you're game and you love the game and you want to be the best that you can be at basketball, you're gonna take your practice serious. You're gonna take your preparation serious. You're going to take everything that it will take. You're going to take your film serious. Anything that it takes to be the best basketball player that you can be, you're going to take it serious. Same with high school sports and COVID. If COVID is a big factor on why we can't play and why kids wouldn't play, we should definitely take it more serious because, like wearing a mask, socially distanced, making sure our kids understand that if they catch COVID, how it can spread. I think that's something that is very overlooked. The fact that you may not know if you have it, but if you go somewhere and someone is very at risk to that virus, it could be very harmful to them. I think this is something that people really need to take serious, and this isn't something to be petty about and say, oh yeah, Governor Whitmer's not doing this or that, and we should put all personal emotions to the side and really think about the kids in this moment and see what's best for everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely right. Orlando, you've been listening in. You've been part of these discussions. What's your take?
Well, the whole thing is sort of sad. First off, we got to congratulate you. You did a great job. Dozens of coaches, some very positive and interesting conversation. And it's just sad to see that all the powers to be surrounding this situation are concerned about themselves and not the kids. That's including our legislature and the MHSAA.
No, you're right, because, we talked about this on the call Sunday, you and Ray having those backgrounds in government. I mean, you see it work. And it's sad, man, because I kind of went in there a little naive. I'm okay admitting that. I was a little naive, Terry, in Orlando. Like, okay, man, let's just go. When our people was going on, like, how can you sit and bring judgment down on somebody else when you wrong? I mean, dude, this was barefaced, the three of us were. And they're sitting here talking about the importance of community following standards and protocols. So what you're telling me is, do as I say, not as I do. What happened to leading by example? So what you're telling me is, just as you sit here as an elected official or whoever you are, you can tell people that they need to follow rules, but when you show up to the game or when someone else shows up that doesn't want to follow protocol, you're going to want an exception to be made. I'm almost upset that nobody who was testifying didn't call it. No, actually, another state rep tried to. What happened is a Democratic state rep. And actually, the room I was in was the same room Giuliani was in when there was a super spreader event. So the representative was like, hey, the last time we were in here, this event turned into a super spreader. So I would have asked everybody on the committee to take their they shouted her down, Orlando. They shouted her down, Terry. You know what they said? That was last legislative session. Meaning that technically this is a new legislative session. Now, even though that was a couple of weeks ago, but because it's a new legislative session, it don't matter. They shouted her down. They might well tell her, shut up. But it showed the true nature of what it's really all about. So they're using this idea of the Let Them Play group that has $50,000 raised by a female, and she wants to sue the governor. And they were always quick to want to get more additional talking points in Orlando that related to what Governor Whitmer didn't do and comparing it. So they were clearly building this case. And the last thing I'll say on this, man, we all know when we see national championships and stuff like that and these type of things happening, one team wins, one team loses to only go back and come back better the next year. In politics, Terry, you're old enough to see this, and I know Orlando knows. Democrats win, Republicans win. Democrats get knocked out, Republicans get knocked out. Take your L, as the wise philosopher Shannon Sharp say, take these hot L's and go sit down somewhere. I don't know, Orlando. What do you think?
You're absolutely right, Lindsay. It's a point right now that it's going to do tremendous damage. You've got a group of coaches that are ready to take everybody and go to Ohio, Indiana, and play. They don't care what the MHSAA has to say about it. They don't care what anybody has to say about it. Their focus is on the kids. You got a group of coaches, you got kids, you got a group of parents that are prepared to do the right thing.
And what I told State Representative Stephen Johnson, who was the chair of the Oversight Committee, I talked to him afterwards, him and his bare face. I kept my distance. But I said, well, another issue that's going to come up is the challenge between MHSA and some of these schools. So y'all talking about let them play, but there's almost need to be a government intermediary to go to MHSA and say, hey, man, what y'all going to do to work this out with these schools?
Right.
Because y'all thinking playing is one thing. Wait until all these schools get get marked ineligible, get suspensions, and all these things happen because they're not meeting MHSA standards. And the last thing, equity did come up. It came up, but nobody knew it was equity. It only came up and some kids can go and some kids can't, because that room was filled with predominantly all white students from, western parts of the state. It is what it is. I understand, but I just tell you, I'm glad I saw it from my own eyes. And the last thing I will say, Terrence Cooper, who was going to be part of the call yesterday, he's a coach here in the area. I know you know Terrence, Terry. Mm-hmm. He called me and said, yeah, man, I'm watching this event, whatever. But he couldn't see the legislators without wearing their masks. All he saw was the vantage point of the speakers. So if the camera would have flashed and showed five legislators not wearing a mask and 4 of them wearing a mask, and the only Republican that wore one was probably the more senior age Republican, Orlando. So he was like, look, I don't got time for politics because I can't mess around. But, it is what it is. But that's what we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, and it seems like I brought it up in the form of performance. It seems like such a simple solution. All this yo-yoing up, play basketball in the spring with track. Talk to the governor, talk to the health department. Look, make this a dead set date. We're willing to wait to that period of time, but let's not keep, yo-yoing these kids back and forth. Yeah, we can play. Yeah, we can. Let's make it in spring.
Yeah,
period.
And I said that. Terry, I want you to share something, but I also want to make another point, and this is directed to the chair of the committee. Now, everybody could not have had the experience of playing sports in high school, but I find it ironic that he was like, I wasn't a good athlete. I wasn't really into it. I'm like, well, what's your connection to this? Then why are you doing this then? You doing it for good government, or you see it as political red meat? You see it as some way to get back, to claw back, some way to bring up something.
They want to get back at that woman from Michigan.
Get back at that woman from Michigan. Let me see what we can do. Let's build a case. And they don't care that it's at the expense of the young people in the state. So, Terry, I know you have some things you wanted to share.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good example of not really understanding the situation. And a lot of them don't even care enough to take time to actually understand how these kids are feeling. A lot of them say in front of a camera, like, yeah, I'm doing it for the kids, or we understand their complaints and their struggle right now, but at the end of the day, they don't care. I mean, like Coach Watkins said, I mean, they're in it for their own interests. And I think, with all this stuff going on, my biggest fear is that we begin to lose, some of these top players to prep schools in different states. And I think, with the fact that we're not playing in other teams and other prep schools and other high school teams in different states, they are playing. And I think a lot of times, you have these top players that are growing, that may be in a 9th grade or maybe in 10th grade that we may not know yet. They'll leave, and then we'll wind up knowing that some kid that's down there in Oak Hill was from Flint, or some kid that wanted to play at Beecher or wanted to play at Cass Tech from their city is down there at Huntington Prep, or is down there at Oak Hill, or is down there, somewhere where we couldn't use him and build him up in his own community. And at the end of the day, they're losing the money towards the community, because we know how much a player can bring that resource, bring that revenue to these schools. And, at the end of the day, the player is going to do what he feels is best for his career. He's going to go to where he can play. And the MHSAA is definitely going to feel it when these top players leave the conference and go play for different teams.
Orlando, I can't help but quote Lakita Coach Gantz from our Sunday conversation when she talked about her son, top prospect Robert Davis Jr., him coming to his mother and saying, Mom, all the other players that leave seem to do good. And that's out the mouth of a babe. He like, I'm just peeping, like, when people leave, they do good. So what am I supposed to do? And also to Keita's point, shout out to Keita, when she said, if I'm a CEO of a corporation and I'm saying that my product is not being, held in the highest regard, or my product is not getting this best type of exposure, I need to make something happen. But MHSA has been very consistent in the fact that unless you bring that lawsuit, that's the only thing that forced them to change. And they're locked into that. And it's sad because we get the emotional part going on, but they get the business as usual. However, tomorrow there will be a press conference, approximately 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have information on that. I will be sharing information about that just to see. But I still think it's going to come down to who's going to stay and who's going to leave. And finally, Orlando, my worry also is when it really come down, will people be ready to look at an option like the exploratory committee we've set up with the Great Lakes High School Athletic Association? Will they be really willing to look at that? Or when it comes down to it, the political pressure from MHSA calling school districts, calling superintendents, doing all that to say, hey, it behooves you not to go, or whatever threat they're going to put out there. Because you know they're going to put a major threat. They're going to threaten you, Orlando. They're going to say, we want your Michael Jordan sweatshirt. We're going to want your University of Florida polo your baby gave you, and they're going to threaten you with all kind of stuff.
But before I went to work today, I made sure I checked up under my car for anything strange.
I mean, you know, but at the end of the day, man, I just hope it works out in the sense that we can get something done. And these next few days are critical. Like I told everybody, you know, the governor had the state address yesterday. And from my experience being in the governor's administration, you know how that goes, Orlando. When the state of the city, everybody's running around for 2 months gathering information. I mean, that is the only priority because nobody wants to drop a dud. Now that that's over, now there's a new director of the Department of Health, and there's been enough kind of like, I think we've done a good job in this last week, Orlando, and kind of like getting it out there. I mean,
kind of opening it up, getting it out there, and it's true, and it was said yesterday. We understand that the governor she has to deal with everyone, not just basketball. So we understand that. We understand that, but we have a governing board, a pseudo governing board,
right?
That is offering absolutely no leadership.
No leadership, and then the other part of it is you got to educate the public to be careful of what the elected officials are doing. Like I said, what I saw today, man, I thought it was, man, this dude, it was just unfortunate. But hopefully we can see by that. I'm just curious, did the helicopter show up? Did John land on the roof yet, Orlando?
He's just stepping out the copter right now. Security has brought him in. They're
clearing everything. Okay, well, when those protocols come back, you let us know. But in the meantime, man, it's been a good week. I want to thank both of you guys personally, man, for just being there and being supportive. We have really created something. Also, I want to shout out Aaron Mays. Aaron Mays has been a big supporter of the SPS Edge podcast, always making comments. He and I got a chance to chop it up. He's a 1984 grad of King High School. So Orlando, 1984 in the city of Detroit. What was that like? I remember it being off the hook, baby.
It was fantastic. As a graduate of 83, no better.
No better. All right, then. Well, shout out to Aaron Mays. I know you're going to be listening. Check this out, man. We appreciate your support on the SPS Edge. And in a little while, we're going to switch off. We're going to get to the Big Ten picks. It's about 7 minutes to tip off.
Our basketball insider is ready to go.
He's ready to go. Okay, good. So with no further ado, let's bring him in, man. Let's get it going. John, how you doing?
Yeah.
We went to mute again. We'll fix it. I think it went to mute right when Orlando changed phones. So Orlando's going to fix that real quick. Don't worry. We got you this time.
Yeah,
we got you.
Said we're good.
Yeah, we are good. Okay. It was a lot of noise earlier. We heard your helicopter landing on Orlando's roof. You know, you show up with such swag, man.
Hey, listen. When you got it, you got it. When you don't, you don't. Some people try to pretend. Others are just real.
Oh, that's it. That's it. Well, John, I want to recap last week just a little bit. How did you feel about the predictions that you and Terry had going? Because it was a little bit different this last week.
Well, the one game he disagreed with me, he won. So he picked Rutgers, and I believe I picked Indiana. But I want to tell you that I've had 3 conversations with some people in Las Vegas that set the lines, run the sports books, and they are very, very happy about the Big Ten this year.
Oh, okay. Because of the parity?
Well, no, they've actually made about 22% more money off people betting because of the just different things that have happened in that conference.
They have, because there's so much going on. It's like there's no.
You get like, for example, we talked about Iowa playing at home against Indiana, and the over and under was 152, and Iowa comes in averaging 94 points and scores 69.
Oh man!
You know what I mean? So I mean, it's stuff like this. It's unusual things happening, determining the game. And there's been the underdogs have been winning a lot of games. So the money is gone on the favorites. The money is looked at. The better has looked at. Well, Wisconsin damn near unbeatable at home, but this isn't holding up.
Right. I get it.
There is no home court advantage.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not.
I can remember talking to Dan Dockich one day, and he used to say he was assistant for Bob Knight, and they'd be down and not playing very good, and he would be elected to be the guy that went up to Knight and said, "Hey, coach, man, you got to start getting on the referees." And he'd say, "Why? They're doing fine." He said, "I know, but when you get on them, the people get all crazy and we get on a run." So, the is zone is not yelling obscenities to the referee. When they played Purdue and the ball's going out of bounds and Aaron Henry gets an arm on his back, a Rocket Watson, he goes out of bounds and they give the ball to Purdue. That would have never happened if 15,000 are at breath. The referee would have made that call.
Yeah, it's funny. Coach Izzo talks about that a lot. Coach Greg Gard from Wisconsin talked about when they went and played Maryland. He said how eerie it felt, John, that, it was so quiet. He literally referenced it. It felt like a pickup game, and they were in the gym by themselves. So those things are having an impact. Let me list what we're going to talk about tonight, John. And I think I let Terry go first last time, so I'll give you a heads up what we're going to go through. We're going to go through Iowa at Illinois first, then Wisconsin at Penn State, Minnesota at Purdue, Michigan State at Ohio State, and then we're throwing Illinois at Indiana. So let's start with that one. What do you think about Iowa at Illinois, John?
I'm going to take Illinois. I think that they'll get after. They're a funny team. I really think they have the second best players in the conference, but they got to show up. But I think Iowa coming in there will excite them. I think they'll defend the 3-point. I think that they'll be able to slow down Garza some, and I look for Illinois to win that game.
Interesting. Terry, what do you think about Iowa versus Illinois?
I agree with them for this one. I have Illinois winning this game, just solely because both of them are 1 and 2 for points per game. That's something I really like to key on for Big Ten games to see who's really scoring the ball in this defensive focused league. But the thing is about Illinois, they don't give up as many points as they get, and I think that's very key to show that they do show some emphasis on defense. And Kofi Coburg is really good inside. I like DeSumo a lot. I like what he brings to the table. His tenacity to get to the rim and either get fouled or make the layup. I really like that with him. I think Illinois is going to speed them up. I think that Iowa. I think it's going to be a high-paced game. But both of these teams score the ball really well, so the pace is going to be high. But I think Illinois is going to be too much, and they're playing at home. I know there's no advantage, but there's nothing like shooting on your own rim. So I got Illinois.
I got a question for you guys. So has Iowa lost a little bit of its has Iowa lost a little of its luster from the beginning of the season to now? Has the curtain been pulled back on them? The emperor wears clothes. John, what do you think?
Well, you know how with people not being in the arena, you're hearing some things watching the game that you don't normally hear.
Absolutely.
In the Iowa-Indiana game, Indiana took a shot, and the shot was missed, and they got back on defense right away. Didn't even go to the offensive to get a rebound, and 2 guys from Iowa had the ball, Garza and Bohannon, and Garza screamed, "Mine!" Next time they went down, they threw it into him, and Indiana had him triple teamed, and Bohannon someone was in the corner who had 15 points at this time, and this is the first half. Had 15 for Iowa. All his guards they had to do was whip the ball to that guy. He didn't, couldn't get the shot up, and it was a 30-second violation. So, I think Iowa. I think they got a few. I think they got a few problems they need to address.
It's coming out.
I think looking to add his stats a little bit.
Yeah, we have to watch that, and then you wonder if all that hype around Luka Garza is kind of falling down right now. But we'll see. Next up, we'll go Wisconsin at Penn State. I'll let you step out with that one first, Terry, as the Spartans actually tip off right now as we speak. But Wisconsin at Penn State.
I really liked how Penn State's effort against Ohio State a couple of days ago. I think they really challenged Ohio State really well. The game that really intrigued me was that Wisconsin-Maryland game that you mentioned before. Maryland is I would say the more athletic team compared to Wisconsin, but I think Wisconsin handled them pretty well. I think Wisconsin's definitely more skilled than I would say more than Penn State. I think that Ohio State really didn't do the little things very well against Penn State, and that's why the game was a lot closer and went wire to wire. And I think Wisconsin, they're known to do little things all the time, so I have Wisconsin.
Okay, we got Wisconsin there. What do you think, John?
Well, I think Penn State's turning the corner a little bit.
I agree with that.
But I don't think they have enough. I don't think they have enough to beat Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin survives this game, and I think it's closer than what people think.
Very good, very good. Okay, next up we got Minnesota and Purdue. Minnesota and Purdue. John, what do you think about that?
I think Purdue. I think Purdue's going to win. Minnesota has struggled on the road this year a little bit, and their last home game they didn't play very well. I think that the more the scouting has come down, and the more that they figure out a way not to stop Marcus Carr, but control him from getting other people, his teammates, into the flow. I like Purdue in this game.
Okay, very well. Terry, what are you thinking?
I have Purdue as well, just because I don't think, like you mentioned, not really stopping Marcus Carr, but neutralizing him. I think that's what Purdue's going to do the most. One thing that I think Purdue does that they don't really get much credit for, that they really slow you down. And I think they play at a slower pace, and I think a lot of it has to do with what their offensive presence is. Travion Williams down there, he's a very back to the basket, post face up kind of guy down there. He needs his touches down there, so that may play in to why they slow them down. They take a lot of pride in defense, and we've seen that when they played Ohio State. They defended them really well, and so I think they're going to play with a struggling Minnesota team really hard and win that game.
Very good, very good. I also want to shout out the Streets Are Talking Podcast Network, Don Houston, Clarence Babora. Also want to shout out my guy Stephen Bardo, the voice of the Big Ten. He's been supporting the podcast and what's going on as well. The next game I want to go to for you, John, is MSU versus Ohio State. And before we go there, right now Rutgers is up 6-0. And the big question that everyone had, who's playing for Michigan State? That starting five was Rocket Watts, A.J. Hoggard, Aaron Henry, Thomas Kithier, and Joey Hauser. So that answered that question. That looks like a team right now, John, as I look at the team, that could be a second unit team with the exception of obviously, Joey Hauser and Aaron Henry. But they're going to have to make it work right now in this COVID protocol. But let's talk about Michigan State versus Ohio State. And for the record, and you can look at the colors, John, there's one person on this podcast that loves Ohio State more than anybody in the world. So I just want to put that out there. So what do you think about Michigan State versus Ohio State? Say again. You say two?
Look at the wall behind them.
I know. It's not hard. It's not hard to figure out, right?
Hey,
so what do you think about that matchup, John?
I'll tell you something. I was allowed at one point in time to watch a certain TV when I had restrictions on where I could go. Okay. I hope you understand what
I got it. I got you.
And but I was invited into a room that was all Cleveland guys, and they were Ohio State guys. And it happened to be the night that Ohio State played Michigan State for the Big Ten championship. And I had to tell those guys, I said, Michigan State has a tremendous history of beating Ohio State when it's really, really a big game. For example, in 1974, they upset Archie Griffin. They were number 1 in the country. They beat him at Spartan Stadium 14-10. And then I personally was at the game when Nicky Saban took Plex and those guys down to Ohio State. And Ohio State was number 1. And Nick Saban, Michigan State beat them. So, Terry, you always got to watch out when it comes time to Michigan State, Ohio State. This is a tremendous, tremendous rivalry with neither one of them ever backs down. Now, I think at this point in time, Ohio State has a leg up on my Spartans. And I think that Ohio State will win this game. And Terry, I just hope you appreciate how hard this is for me. But since I have so much respect for you and Lindsay, I'm going to put away my Michigan State hat, and I'm going to try to be a member of this podcast team. I think's going to win the game, and I think Ohio State's going to win.
John, that's so good. Terry texted me. He said, I don't even got to speak. Terry don't even want to respond. He said he good. Go ahead, Terry. Tell us what you're thinking.
No, I have Ohio State for this one. But I think, I think this game is definitely going to be a lot closer due to the fact that, like I mentioned before, this is a game that MSU can definitely circle, highlight, star, put a big, gigantic mark through it and show that this game is going to help their tournament resume. And I think that's why they're going to come out with some intensity. I guess, I won't be able to see how they'll play against Rutgers tonight before I make this call, but just based off what I know as of right now, and Michigan State hasn't played in a few weeks, I think Ohio State's rolling. I have Ohio State.
Yeah, 2 for Ohio State. Josh Langford just checked in. John, is 6 minutes and 12 seconds left in the first half. Michigan State down 10-0. I don't think we've ever seen that before. And I think that may be what 3 weeks off looks like. That may be what, COVID going through your team looks like. And he had called a timeout a moment ago. They're yet to score, but I'll be curious to know if he recognizes that's what it is. But, I mean, did that surprise you, being down 10-0 right now, coming off a 3-week hiatus?
No, I mean, everything I see, and I love watching college basketball, and I love watching college football. And what I saw in football and what I'm seeing in basketball is that 99.9% of the teams aren't the same. It's just not the same. The arenas aren't the same. The kids aren't playing. And what you said last week about how long they've been quarantined, and then I read the protocol of why Purdue played Michigan and what Purdue players have been doing and how they have to be isolated and they have to eat by themselves and they can't go visit. It just lends for – I think Michigan State's in deep trouble here. I really do.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
And the one team in the Big Ten that was consistent was Michigan. And no telling what's going to happen coming out of this for them.
Right. What I'm going to say is I'm going to keep us on, but I am going to close off for our podcast. It's going to be on the Streets of Talking Podcast Network. Shout out to them. So at this point, this will conclude for the Streets of Talking Podcast Network. But we will continue on our program right now going forward. So the next thing we're going to talk about, guys, is that last game on the matchup. That last game is, and I heard what you said, John. I mean, it's not like I almost didn't want to hear what you said, but I heard what you said about the concern. Terry and I were talking earlier in the show about, tournament seeding, and that when they go in there, that committee is probably going to give Michigan State, some credibility, but it's going to be really tight. Let's talk about this last game, and I'll go to John. I'll go back to you for this one too. Illinois at Indiana.
I like Illinois in this game. I just think that the closer it gets to the end of this thing, that Illinois is going to respond to them still having an outside chance. No one knows what's going to happen to Michigan coming back, and I think they have a little bit more incentive. I don't know what the heck's happening at Indiana. Tom Crean couldn't seem to get over the hump, and I don't think Archie Miller's getting over the hump either.
Was Archie Miller the right choice? I know he was the right name. Was he the right choice?
I think so. You got to keep the kids. You got to go in and you got to beat off Purdue for the best players in Indiana. And occasionally Butler's gonna come in and get one. Mm-hmm. But Indiana, man, you just got to get the players there. And Indiana's close to Chicago. They've always had a good relationship with Chicago. So, no, I don't think it was a good choice. And I think they'll end up running this guy right out of there.
Wow. Will Indiana ever get back? And I know we're going to go to you, Terry, but will Indiana ever get back to the Providence?
The right guy, one thing great about basketball, coaching college basketball, is you can get back fast. You can get back a lot faster than coaching football. And all it takes is the right guy. They love the game there. They've got good facilities. They have a lot of good players within an hour and a half of that place. So you can start building a relationship with a lot of good players at a very young age. You can get them on campus in the summer when they're in the 7th and 8th grade. You can get them to fall in love with that place with just an hour and a half, 2-hour drive away.
Oh man, we're talking to the recruitment king right there. All right, Terry, let's get your take on Illinois at Indiana.
Yeah, I have Illinois as well. I think that this may be a trap game from Illinois, as I picked them to beat Iowa. I think that's something to keep an eye on if they keep riding the high and don't come back down to reality and realize that every game in the Big Ten counts. It's going to be a long night for them. I think the biggest key from Illinois in this game is to take away Indiana's hope. I agree with what John said about the closer and closer it gets, the more that Indiana may have a chance to win. But I think that they're going to take care of them. Indiana, I don't remember Indiana being very good since Victor Oladipo, Cody Zeller, and Yogi Ferrell, and that's a while ago. As Oladipo has been playing in the league for a while now. So, right. But I have Illinois for sure in this one.
Okay. Well, there you have it. We have the matchups. We've approached our hour. We've had it from the basketball insider John giving us some great insight. Terry and I talked about a number of issues, and right now, as I look at the score, past the 15-minute mark, John, Rutgers 15, Michigan State 0.
Wow.
Now, it's one thing to be down 15, as you know, but 15-0. You only can hope that they can save face, and I'm not saying that the game is over and it's done. Marky Bingman is in, Foster Loyer is in, Malik Hall is in. He's pretty much changed the whole starting lineup with the exception of Rocket Watts, who he probably needs for some scoring power. So that's just what we're dealing with right now. And poor time, man.
Lindsey, I've seen a problem with this team since the beginning of the year, though. When the shot clock's getting down, took the ball and made something happen. They don't have a player like that.
Right.
Nobody even, I think, wants the ball at the end. Yeah. When Aaron Henry went coast to coast, when they had a shot, when they were down by Purdue, remember, he got to the glass.
Yeah, he did. He had a chance to be the hero.
He went to the side. He didn't go to the rim because what do? You tell a kid, go to the rim, you're at home, they'll call a foul.
Right, exactly.
He drifted away from the rim and threw something up at 6 feet instead of going and attacking the glass and going to the foul line.
Oh, and for the record, MSU is on the board, 15-2. So here we go. So with that, I want to thank you guys. John, I want to thank you for always sharing what you bring to the show. Terry, you're a workhorse. You keep things going. Orlando as well. And I want to thank everyone who listens to the SPS Edge. Shout out to our viewers like Aaron Mays and everybody else out there. So with that, I want to thank you guys. You can check us out also on the streets of talking.com. And we'll be back here next week. So with that, I want to thank you guys, and we're signing off.
All right. Thanks, guys.